out and they have these experiences, they go get an education, and then they come back and to help their people. And certainly with what Hunter has been doing in our community, his department runs a program called Sons of Tradition. It's a Wade Bison program that our prevention specialist, Brian Loney, who's here today, they administer that to show men healthy lifestyles and how to work in the community in a good way. Appreciate Hunter and the work that he does on the drum. We also have another of our Anishinaabe that's here today. These guys call me Joseph. She still calls me Joey. And Dr. Suzanne Cross works at Michigan State University in the field of social work, just like Dr. Duran does. And I'd like to ask Dr. Cross to come up and to share her experience right now. Dr. Suzanne Cross.
Thank you, Joey. It's one benefit of becoming an elder. I just wanted to mention before I share a story that I've written that I'm very pleased to be here. It's an honor to be a part of the event today, and also I was involved in the event the 17th in Mount Pleasant. When I was watching the video or the slides on the walk thus far, I had one tear come down the side of my face, and I realized it was because the music, I Believe I Can Fly, was our foster son's favorite song, and he used to sing it all the time. He was from the Seneca Nation. We had him and his brother live with us, my husband James, and that was his favorite song. And he was also a child who had been physically and sexually abused. I've been working as a faculty member on the boarding school project, interviewing people who have attended the boarding school and second and third generation individuals. I've been doing this since 2005 and plan to continue to do so. Next week I'll be in the Upper Peninsula doing some interviews up there. Upper Peninsula of Michigan, sorry. I know everyone in Michigan knows the Upper Peninsula. Before I start with the story of my mother's attendance at the boarding school, I wanted to share that I've only shared this story with my family and then once at an Indian Child Welfare Conference, and it seemed to have an impact on a lot of people in the audience. And one woman walked up to me and took off her earrings and gave them to me and thanked me for saying some things that she was not able to say, but would want to say. Sometimes I can make it through the story without becoming tearful. Sometimes I become tearful. If I do, just give me a moment. One thing boarding school, which I did not attend but my mother did, teaches you as you pull it together like that. So you might be allowed one or two tears with the next gift. My father, who did not attend boarding school, when I would cry as a child, would put me on his lap and he would say, tears are okay, tears are evidence that the pain is coming out. So that was the variation that I was raised with between my mother and my father. This story I've written is entitled, I Didn't Know You Went to Boarding School. At lunch, my friend and I were sitting across from each other in a restaurant when she noticed my first action was to take the silverware, which was rolled up in a cloth napkin, and put the silverware in exact proper setting. Then she noticed I cut my food into tiny little pieces and ate with exactitude. She asked, "How did you learn to do that?" I said, "Boarding school." She said, "I didn't know you went to boarding school." I promptly responded, "I didn't, but my mother did." I actually was surprised at my own response, but on occasion the truth unveils itself when it is least expected. I intend no diversion from the experiences of others who have actually attended boarding school. However, it is important to acknowledge parental attendance had an impact on the lives of their children and continues to resonate in subsequent generations. At 7, Violet, my mother, Rose, her sister, 6 years old, and Joseph, the 4-year-old brother, were removed from the family home due to lack of food, their father working away from the home as a lumberjack, and their mother deceased from childbirth. The government people, as they were called at that time, did not understand the concept of extended family system. As a result, they were oblivious to the fact that these children were being cared for by relatives and the community. When my mother, auntie, and uncle, as children, arrived at the Mount Pleasant Boys Industrial Boarding School, they were immediately separated, their hair cut crudely and short, stripped of their traditional clothing, including sacred protective items, which were discarded. They were then doused with a harsh chemical powder that burned their eyes, mouth, throat, and skin. Next, they were suited with military dress code uniforms and assigned to dormitories based on gender and age. My mother only saw her siblings while marching in rank to and from buildings. She and her sister did not acknowledge one another for fear of being severely punished. However, Joseph, who was only 4, upon seeing my mother, who was marching across the compound to the lunch hall, as he marched in the opposite direction, broke rank, ran to her, and embraced her tightly as he became tearful and inconsolable. She held him for a moment, and then the nuns separated the two of them. The punishment for breaking rank was administered swift and harsh. They both experienced the public humiliation of being beaten with a belt in front of the other children who were standing in a straight line of silence. As she recalled from that day forward, while at the school, when she saw her brother Joseph coming toward her, she would turn her head away from him as to give him no acknowledgement at all, so neither would be punished again for the same act. She was so remorseful as she accounted this incident. It troubled her all of her life. She resented having to reject her little brother in order to save them both from the wrath of the strict disciplinarians. I make the assumption of my mother as being a high-spirited child, which intensified her negative boarding school experience. Her punishments included the act of name-calling, slapping, punching, being forced to eat or go without food, and extreme cleaning duties. The punishment she received most frequently required her to kneel on uncooked rice on the cement floor for hours, being beaten with a belt, locked in a dark broom closet, or outside on wooden wands. She also witnessed the sexual abuse of others, including young girls in a 100-bed dormitory at night by the matron in exchange for food. Food would be placed on a young girl's bed to convey it was her turn to spend the night with the matron. My mother said I could almost feel it that it was going to be my turn to spend the night with her. Her method of prevention was to break the rules during the day to provoke a beating with the belt, for she knew the matron never spent the night with a girl who had just been beaten. This provocation became her method of self-protection. Another significant incident that repeatedly came to mind for my mother was the last time she was locked in the broom closet. The broom and mop handles were laid crisscross on the floor, and she was required to kneel on them. If at any time the door opened and she was not kneeling, more time was added to her punishment. She had indicated she would distract herself from her pain by thinking of how her life would be as an adult and how she was going to treat her children. She knew it would be the opposite of this. After 2 years of being disciplined in this manner, she felt something inside of her would crumble or die, but she did not fight back. So when the door opened, instead of kneeling, she stood facing the opened door proudly, as if she was dressed in her traditional clothing and had her sacred medicine bag. She was told, "Get down, kneel." She defied the order by standing. The order was repeated but she continued to stand firm. The other children began to notice